This weekend, I took a trip to Ottawa, so of course, we had to try the O train. Okay, so this train has been in the news a lot, and usually not for good reasons. This video is not going to be a deep dive on the line's torrid past. Instead, I wanted to focus on my perspective as just a regular visitor to Ottawa and ask a simple question. Is this line actually good enough to be useful for a regular trip? Here's the scenario. Two friends staying out in the suburbs are on a mission to visit our friends downtown for a drink. What are our options? Well, Ottawa Transit is comprised of two main LRT lines, an airport stub line, and a decent local bus network. So with high hopes, we plugged in our destination and set off. Unfortunately, our first challenge was getting Google Maps to actually offer the O train as a viable route. Despite starting and ending our journey less than 1 kilometer from a station, the train was never offered as the recommended solution. Instead, we were encouraged to take a bus that at least partially directly parallels the train's route. This is not a great sign, folks. The station in our area straddles a highway, a running trail, and a transitway, severely limiting the potential for transit-oriented housing development in the area, necessitating that most trips to or from the station will require longer walks. That being said, it was a really pretty walk. I like this bridge and the approach trail. Walking up to the station, we were met with clear signage and detailed maps. Really pretty. And they also had this tester station to let you practice loading your bike onto the bus racks. Cool. OC Transpo uses the same paddle-style fare gates as the TTC does. Presto and credit cards are all accepted. Except for Amex. As we make our way up onto the platform, the classic Metrolinx design language becomes clear. And I'll be honest, I like it. The station is spacious, well-signed, and quite clean. And the next train signage is free of ads and displays multiple upcoming vehicles. But unfortunately, this also reveals the dismal frequencies on this line, with only one train every 12 minutes. Yikes. I'm still holding out hope, though, that the train ride itself will at least be fast. Not a great sign, though, as we see it crawling slowly into the station. At least this gives us a chance to get a good look at the train sets. Stadler Flirt diesel electrics with a red and white exterior design. The train set is made up of 4 cars and a central power pack unit, which holds the 4 diesel generators on this train. In my opinion, they're quite pretty, but they're diesel, which overrides any pretty and makes them ugly. We also noticed these large rubber cushions above the wheels and asked an operator about them. Most subway systems use self-leveling pneumatic supports that automatically adjust a train's height based on passenger load, keeping the doors level with consistent height platforms. The O train, however, is classified as a mainline rail system, and platform heights are more variable. The simplest solution to maintain easy roll-on accessibility involved giving the drivers manual control to adjust the suspension. As we climb on board, I'm struck by 2 things. 1, with how empty this train is despite the long wait on the platform, and 2, how clean it is. The layout and seating remind me much more of a regional rail commuter train than of an urban rapid transit line. Future Chris here. After a deep dive into some very old government documents, it looks like they knew that from the beginning. At least the seats are plentiful and very comfortable. I grab one and we wait to pull out of the station. And all I can say is, yikes. This train is slow. We accelerate slowly, the top speeds are slow, and boy, oh boy, do we dwell at stations. You could probably shave a few minutes off the frequency of this line just by reducing dwell times. During our ride, we stopped at some stations for over 2 minutes. The transit equivalent of watching paint dry. And our journey between stations is not much better, as we realize this line is actually single-tracked, meaning that north and southbound trains share these tracks and must negotiate passing each other using the stations. This compromise is due to the quick-build pilot nature of this line's original construction, and is a likely contributor to our slow speeds. We'll go over the history in more detail at the end. When we finally arrive at our interchange station, Bayview, we are already well behind anyone that was taking the bus or a car. But as I stepped out onto this platform, I was genuinely impressed. I think this is a beautiful station. The transfer to Line 1 is quick and seamless, just up these stairs. Or we could have taken one of the double elevators. A great touch to ensure station accessibility has a backup and isn't lost from a single out-of-service elevator. A design feature that I don't believe has been implemented anywhere in Toronto, even at some of our newest and most important stations. If I'm wrong, please comment below. After a short wait again, we see our Line 1 train pulling into the station. At least this time, it's fully electric and appears to be moving relatively quickly. Once on board, we are met with a more traditional subway-style layout. A lot of space for standing near the doors, and a consistent low-floor design throughout the train.
Doors closing.
We even briefly experience acceptable speeds. But unfortunately, this doesn't last long either, and long stretches of our ride are still depressingly slow for a fully grade-separated train. Based on some quick research, this appears to line up with speed restriction zones imposed due to track quality issues. And with that, we arrive at our final stop, Rideau Station. It's a nice station, clean and spacious just like the rest, and with some pretty interesting art. But unfortunately, it's a relatively deep underground station at over 26 meters below street level, making it the deepest underground station in the entire O-Train network, an unfortunate necessity in order to pass below the nearby Rideau Canal. The station features the longest single transit escalator in Canada, measuring 35 meters long. By my estimates, the journey to the surface added 3 minutes to our journey. Remember folks, in transportation, every second counts. That includes parking time if you're in a car, but it also includes escalator time if you're taking transit. Emerging from the station, we take a short walk over to our bar and finally meet up with our friends. Cheers to the O-Train. We might be late, but at least we didn't drive, and now we can drink to forget this train's depressingly slow speeds. Overall, I have to say I was pretty disappointed in the train. Transit has to be fast. Period. Without speed, nothing else matters, because no one will be using it. Clean trains and spacious platforms mean squat if you can't get from point A to point B fast. And in this, the O-Train fails spectacularly. Maybe I wrote it on a bad day, or my use case isn't quite what it was designed for, but it seems like many locals share my disappointment in their system, as every one of our friends we met for drinks laughed when we told them we took the train. So let's review the history to understand how Canada's capital ended up with such a compromised main rail line. Starting with Line 2, which was never designed to be a high-speed transit line in the first place. It was built as a pilot in 2001 to take advantage of an underused freight rail line, and was always intended as a quick-build project. Its initial 5 stations were built for only $21 million. At less than $5 million per station, that is a remarkable feat in affordable transit construction. The TTC is spending $2 million just to install a few fences at one station. Not full platform screen doors, fences. Anyway, back to Ottawa. The full expansion of Line 2 to its current state, plus the airport link, was completed in 2025 for a cool $1.6 billion. Okay, now we're at a serious cost, and I'm forced to ask if this version of the line is worth it at all, and in my opinion, not really. Ottawa has built a transit system so weak it loses to the bus line that parallels it. And maybe I could forgive the mediocrity of this project if it was used to quickly spur further upgrades for a better system. But instead, it has remained in this compromised half state for over 2 decades. That money could have been used to strengthen the bus transitway nearby and massively increase service that would better integrate into Ottawa's low-density suburban areas. Because if we're being honest, Ottawa simply doesn't have the right land use for a full subway system. The low-density development sprawling in every direction from most stations would have been much better served by frequent buses. Line 1, on the other hand, is at least a more legitimate transit option through Ottawa's core. But following so many public failures with serious consequences, it appears the approach is now to minimize risk at all costs. Slow zones are everywhere on Line 1 and have been for years. No one is advocating for unsafe operations. But seriously, close the line, fix the rail, and reopen a real transit line. This all comes down to priorities and funding. And it's a perennial problem on the TTC too, leading to a slow bleed in the belief that transit can be trusted as a reliable daily transit option. Because in Canada, there is always money for a new project, and never money or the political will to ensure our core infrastructure stays functional. My hat's off to the OC Transpo employees doing their best to make things work with the resources they have. But in the end, despite the quality stations and electric trains, the service on Line 1 still feels middling at best. Let's try and be a little optimistic and see what the future holds. There is supposedly a near-complete extension of Line 1 further east, followed by an extension west, which will see a fully expanded Line 1 and new Line 3 stretching over 37 kilometers, and connecting many key Ottawa area destinations to rail transit. But if the scope of our ambition is just longer lines on maps, and ongoing issues of track quality and slow running speeds remain ignored, I fear Ottawa residents may remain disappointed in the utility of their core transportation line. An expensive experiment in ongoing mediocrity, especially as this time, costs are not so cheap, with forecasts upwards of $5 billion. In summary, would I recommend taking the O train if you're in Ottawa? No. We actually got a lift home by car, and it was at least twice as fast. I will be back to regular Toronto content with my next video, and if you'd like to support me in making these videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon, or dropping a comment below about what you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching!